Welcome, friends. I'm Chris. I'm from Transformation Nation Yoga and Wellness. Welcome to Sunrise Yen. In today's practice, we're going to do a fire and metal practice. So we're going to focus on poses that lengthen connective tissues along the heart, small intestine, lung, and large intestine meridians. What I think you'll need to be safe, to enjoy, to get the most out of your practice. I'm going to be using a yoga mat. I think a yoga mat is a good practice, but I also think for this practice you could do something in a carpeted space. I like a blanket, a little more cushion between my hips and the earth. Often feels really good in my body. Two foam or cork yoga blocks, and I'd like you to have a yoga bolster. Now, this is a prop that not everybody is going to want or need, but for many of us, it can make the poses much more accessible and I really think skillful as well. If you don't have a bolster, rather than reaching for a pillow from the bed, which just mostly is not gonna offer a lot of support, uh, grab a cushion off your sofa. That usually has lots of support and is about the right thickness as well. So pause your recording, roll out your mat, gather up your props, and when you're ready, press play, and I'll meet you on your mat for Sunrise Yen. Okay, so we're gonna get right into poses, but we'll do just a handful of cleansing breaths first. So find your comfortable seat, stacking the joints as always. Float your head over your shoulders, over your hips. Relaxed arms, so whatever that means for your hands. Drawing a deep, life-affirming inhale through your nose. Open your mouth, exhale with a ha. Two more like that. Inhale through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. Inhale through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. And then we're going to begin today with Anahatanasana, puppy dog pose. So starting in a tabletop shape, and I'd love for you to have two blocks close by. So in this tabletop shape, float your shoulders over your wrists, your hips over your knees. We set the block shoulder width apart at the lowest height, just ahead of your elbows. Goal is the hips will stay stacked over the knees. There's a bit of a tendency for the hips to draw back or forward, but if you can keep them stacked, that's ideal. Then place your elbows on the blocks. Bring the palms of your hands together. Release your heart and your forehead down toward the earth. Release your thumbs toward the space in between your shoulder blades. So as usual, like what I end up talking about or focusing on in the practice is usually something related to what's going on in my life at that time. And one thing that I've been giving a lot of thought to recently is relaxing into the flow of life. And so just as a metaphor, um, I bought a stand-up paddleboard when I moved to Lake Somerville, and the first time I took it out, it arrived and I got it all inflated and I got everything put together. And I just walked down to the lakeshore and I put it out, and the wind was howling, the wind was blowing. The wind blows here most of the time. And so I put the paddleboard on the lake. Now, to be fair, what I bought this paddleboard for was like to be able to use the lake recreationally, but also for a workout. So I put the paddleboard on the way on the lake, and I was paddling into the wind. And so I got knocked off. It was the first time on a paddleboard in several years, and first time on this new paddleboard at all. So I got knocked off a few times.
So my first time on the paddleboard, also my first swim in Lake Somerville. But I paddled for probably 35 or 40 minutes, and when I turn around and I look at the lake shore to check my progress, I'd probably gone 150 or 200 yards. And then when I was ready to wrap things up, I turned the paddleboard around, and my trip back to the shoreline was probably something more like 4 minutes. It was easy, pretty fun. And there's all kinds of tired metaphors. I mean, how many times do we hear about like people swimming into the ocean and the rip tides are strong and people that fight against the current drowned and people that relax into the current get carried out to sea first, but then get swept back into shallow seas and back to the shoreline further down the coast. But I feel like we do this in our lives too. Like this comes up for us a lot. And I'm coming through a season of my life where I've been paddling against the current pretty hard, paddling as hard as I could, and pretty disappointed and a little hurt by my lack of progress. But also at some point realizing that I was paddling into the wind. So, what does it look like for a life where we can more quickly recognize that we're paddling against the flow of life and then changing the direction of our vessel to get ourselves in a direction where things can come with more ease and maybe we can enjoy the ride a little bit more? Right, start to rock forward onto your forearms. Let your hips come forward, and you can drop your forearms off the blocks. Lower your hips down to the earth. Find a Sphinx pose. And maybe take one block, place it at a medium height in between your wrists. Lengthen your legs long behind you. And then relax the legs. Everything from your seat down to the tips of the toes relaxes. Ankles maybe roll to the inside or the outside. And I'd like you to keep your shoulders floating over your wrists. But any muscular engagement that doesn't lend itself to shoulders over the wrists, see if you can soften and release that. Soften in the belly especially. Now, if you're neurotically drawing yourself forward, pulling the elbows back toward the waist, which I would cue you to do in vinyasa, right? Here we don't need to do that. Maybe flip the palms up, and I cued the blocking correctly. Maybe place the block at the highest height. Release your forehead down to the block. So I feel like, at least my perception, what scares me away from more easily falling into flow is a fear that if I just say, I'm going to go with the flow of life, that means I'm no longer going to try at anything. And anything that doesn't come easily, I'm just going to give up and not do. And I don't think that's what this is. So I feel like there's a degree of discernment in a process where we learn to recognize what exactly is the flow calling for here. What does being in flow look like in this situation? And then having the courage to surrender to that, even if where the current is taking us it doesn't match the map that we have. I worked for USDA Forest Service for about 7 years of my natural resources career. And The first job that I had was a technician job. This is recreation, wilderness trails, wilderness special use permits. Every day was a little different. So I had certain core things that I did, but I worked by myself most of the time. It's maybe the best job I ever had. And then the second job, that first job was in East Texas. The second job I had was in New Hampshire. It was 4 hours away from my hometown in Maine, where my parents still lived at the time and was married at the time. My in-laws lived about 4 hours away. All of my grandparents at the time that I moved there were still alive. They all lived within 4 or 5 hours. But I remember when the job posting came up the first time, I looked at it and I went, "Yeah, I think I could do this job, but I don't think this is what I want to do." And then I started worrying about like this is, I think I'd like to be closer to my family. I don't know if there's going to be another good opportunity. I think I could compete well for this. And so I talked myself into applying for this job that I didn't really want to do. Now my motivations for the job, I had all the right reasons. Like I was feeling drawn closer to my home of origin, feeling drawn closer to family. Like those are all good things, right? All the right reasons. But I applied for the job and I got it like quite easily, competed for it. And it was all the right reasons, but it was the wrong job. So I don't know if this is everybody's experience, but what I find is when I do the wrong thing for all the right reasons, 6 months after I made the decision to do it, all I can see is all the wrong reasons. Right. So I was badly out of flow with life. And I did that for 4.5 years, and it was not a happy time in my life. And a lot of the problems that I had anyway, really magnified, really came to a head for me during that time period. And I think it was just a little bit of added pressure because everything else was coming difficult. All right, we're going to transition into our next shape. So if you chose to release your forehead down to your block, lift your forehead, flip the block to more of a medium height. Whoops. And then we're going to take broken branch. So slide the palm of your left hand forward, create a big generous space under your left elbow. Now, spread your right arm under your chest across the front plane of your body. Wrap your left arm over your right. Now, from here, walk, walk, walk the fingers of each hand further out in their respective directions. Check in, notice a level of sensation. We're looking for discomfort without pain. So a 4 to a 6 on a scale from 0 to 10. If you're there, release your forehead down to a block now. And if you're not, tuck your toes under your feet, rock the crown of your head forward toward the top edge of your mat, and then release your forehead down to a block. So I feel like, how do we know when we're in rhythm? Well, I think it's important to have had the experience of being out of rhythm to know what that feels like. And I think the embodied sense of being out of rhythm was probably going to be similar to the embodied sensation of anxiety. But if your experience is different with that, I'd really be interested in hearing where the embodied sensation of being out of rhythm with life is. So that's useful. I think it would be helpful to know, what does it feel like to be in rhythm? And I don't know how much scrutiny this metaphor will bear, but like a healthy joint We know that a joint is healthy because there's no complaints. There's no pain and there's full range of motion, right? That in our lives seems fairly unremarkable. Most people aren't going to notice that. But we start to appreciate that. That seems like a low bar for success. No pain, healthy, natural range of motion. We start to appreciate that when we have joints where that's not the case, where we have pain, or where the range of motion is compromised, right? But that natural, healthy state, yep, I don't have pain, I've got the range of motion that I should have, everything's good, right? I feel like it's sort of the same thing when we're in rhythm with life, right? Everything is flowing and feels good. Life is not such that things always come easily, right? But maybe more so than usual when we're in rhythm. Lift your forehead up off your block. Walk your toes back behind you. Unwind your arms, maybe back to Sphinx, and then change sides, set up to the other side. Slide your right hand forward. Wrap your left arm under your chest. Right over left. Walk, walk, walk the arms out in opposite directions. And then add sensation by tucking the toes and rocking the crown of the head forward or not. But the other thing to keep in mind, I think, my theory is that us being out of rhythm with life, being out of the flow, out of alignment with the flow of life, doesn't mean that we did something wrong or that we're wrong or that we made a mistake. Sometimes we start in a direction and we're in rhythm, and then life changes, or the thing changes, or we change, and that's what puts us out of rhythm. But I think sometimes we have an experience because we're supposed to have the experience. So the job in northern New Hampshire, for example, I found sobriety during that time period of my life. I was there and able to be there to say goodbye to all four of my grandparents before they passed away. Right. I think I had that life experience for a reason. In our Next Level Human program, our Ayurvedic health coaching program, the 10th of the 10 habits that we work on is easeful living. Right. I can't think of a better definition for being in the flow of life than living easefully. And again, I don't think that means that everything always comes naturally or comes really easily. I think it means that we're not struggling against it when it's not. Start to unwind from this shape. Maybe rock the crown of the head back by tucking the toes. Unwind the arms, remove your block, and then find a half frog just as a resting shape. Goalposting your arms out to the side, turning your chin in either direction, and then lifting the knee along your mat on the same side that your gaze is turned. And allowing that hip on the side with the lifted knee to just fall down toward the earth. And lower your lifted knee back, down in line with your other. Bring your hands under your shoulders. Lift yourself up, come onto your knees, and grab two blocks. You might not choose to use them, but we're going to do camel. So I'd like you to place one block in between your inner thigh, as close to the pubic bone as you can. Second, in between the ankles. And then stack the joints. Float your head over your shoulders, over your hips, over your knees. Hands as if you were placing them in the back pocket of denim jeans. Start to tweeze your elbows together behind you, pressing your hips forward, lifting your heart up out of your chest. Like there was a string tied to your heart, lifting it up toward the heavens. And then maybe drop the crown of your head back behind you. Now that doesn't feel great in my neck. So you could also have a more neutral neck. So especially if you've chosen the block in between the inner thighs and you're squeezing the block, this is a pretty fiery pose. So see where you can find some softness, maybe in the chest, maybe soften in the belly a little bit more. Keep pressing the hips forward, keep lifting your heart up out of your chest. And start to draw your hips. Well, first of all, if you drop the crown of your head back behind you, lift the crown of your head up. Draw your hips back in line. You can remove the block from in between the thighs. We're going to go into saddle pose. Now, option one for saddle, you could actually set it up for right here and just sit back onto two blocks. More or less stack joint. If you've got some space, reach back, remove a block. If you have more space, remove that second block. You could actually even start folding down onto forearms or earth back all the way down to the earth. I'm going to use props here. So one block at the lowest height, one block at the highest height, the bolster set up over the whole kit and caboodle. And then lower your seat down in between your heels, lower your body back onto the props.
All right, so note your points of compression. So remember, we're looking for a scale of 4 to 6 on a scale from 0 to 10, discomfort without pain. So the compression points on lots of bodies, big stretch on the tops of the ankles, some compression in the ankles, pulling at the tissues at the tops of the knees, but also hip flexors. I feel this a lot in rectus femoris. So use this as an opportunity to notice, are you in the flow of life in this pose? Are you out of the flow and struggling against it? So if you're at a sensation level of 8, that's probably struggling against it. Unnecessary. Change the pose, go to one of the other versions. Check in with your body, notice your current level of sensation. So I'm at a 6, I'm not going to change anything. But if you've got props supporting you under your upper body, you could remove the props. One way you can add a little sensation without going overboard is just to take the arms up over your head and grab opposite elbows. Check for any gripping. Are you gripping anywhere? Gripping in the rectus femoris, the hip flexors. You gripping in the belly, gripping in your jaw. And if you are, see if you can notice that with kindness, notice it with curiosity, and then maybe choose to let that go. I'm going to start to come out of this. So use good body mechanics. One way that looks like good body mechanics to me is to bring the hands to the heels and the soles of the feet, engage the core, and with the support of the arms, lift up until you have stacked joints, and then you can unwind, remove the blocks. Grab one block, Make your way onto your back. Put a generous bend in your knees, soles of your feet on the earth. Place the block in between your inner thighs. Walk your hips over to the right and to your arms out to the side if you like. Drop your knees over to the left. Leave your gaze up toward the heavens. All right. If this puts you in a 4 to 6, you're good. You don't have to change anything. If you wanted a little more sensation, remove the block from in between your inner thighs. And for even more, you could, if you like, straighten that right leg and let gravity draw the big toe edge of your right foot closer down toward the earth. Check in with your body. Notice what your experience in this pose is like right now. Have you surrendered to the flow of this pose? And if you have, you may have opened up some more space. So if you didn't straighten that right leg, you could. You could also transition the cat pulling its tail, which looks like catching the top of your left foot in your right hand and then grounding your whole left leg and your whole right arm, right shoulder down into the earth. And check in again, check for any gripping. Any points of tension in your body. Gripping might be an indication that we're a little bit out of flow. But there's a way that we could get into the rhythm that's a bit more easeful. And if you straightened your right leg, put a bend in the knee. If your cat is pulling its tail, release the tail. Draw your knees back up the center. We're going to go into Nautilus. So two options. Find the one that feels like being in flow. Option one starts from supine figure four. You hook the pinky edge blade of your right foot on the outside of your left thigh and place your left hand on your right shin just below the knee and traction your right knee down towards your left shoulder. For more sensation, eagle legs, wrap your right knee over your left, walk your hips over to the right a bit, lift the knees up like you were trying to touch yourself in the chin, and then left hand to your right shin. Same action of drawing that right knee down to the left shoulder. I think there's a perception sometimes when we're out of rhythm that it requires a big shift to get back in rhythm. So a big shift might be leaving the relationship, leaving the job, leaving the city, moving. And sometimes that's true, especially if we're wildly out of rhythm. But I think more often what's true is we can shift our approach a little bit. I think getting into rhythm often doesn't require a big dramatic change. And I feel like we practice this in yoga a lot. All those cues to soften, soften the flesh around your eyes, relax your jaw. I think all of those are the same sorts of little bumps and adjustments sometimes make the difference between being out of rhythm, being out of the flow of life, and getting back into flow. Release the soles of your feet down to the earth. Release your right shin. Unwind your legs. And we'll set up for twisted root on the other side. Maybe starting with a block in between the thighs, maybe not. Walk your hips over to the left. Drop your knees over to the right. I didn't mention this before, but one more option for sensation. You could also go eagle legs here as well, wrapping your left knee over your right.
Check in with your body. Notice where your sensation's at. Staying right where you are is always an option. So is straightening the left leg or taking cat pulling its tail on the second side. Right. If there's a bend in your left knee, or rather, if you straighten your left leg, put a bend in the knee. If you're pulling your tail, drop your tail, bring your knees back up to center. Setting up again for Nautilus pose on the second side. Again, this could start with a supine figure 4 or eagle legs, but the action will be your right hand on your left shin, drawing your left knee down towards your right shoulder. Relax the feet here. I used to teach this with flex feet, and I tried it both ways. Flexing the feet makes no difference in the impact in this pose. So choose to find some ease there. Start to release your left shin, lower your feet down to the earth. If you're in eagle legs, unwind the legs and straighten your legs long, lengthen your arms long over your head, find a full body stretch. And then start to walk both legs over to the left, both arms over to the left. Little angels practicing yoga at my feet and wondering why I just stepped on it. Making a banana or like a crescent moon shape. We're looking for space and length along the left side body from the pinky edge blade of your left foot all the way to the tip of your left pinky finger. But again, we're looking for something that is characterized by discomfort without pain. So if you find you're clinging or you're gripping, release there, maybe little by little, maybe all at once, but get back into the flow with life here. Right. Only if your body wants more sensation. Only if you've opened up some space. Cross your left ankle over your right. Or take your right hand, find a light grip around your left wrist. Draw your left arm further over to the right. Just keep in mind, like, we can make these changes because we think we have the space, but if we make that and then we find ourselves with those changes out of rhythm, we can always go back. All right. If you crossed your left ankle over your right, release that ankle. If you grabbed your left wrist, release the wrist. Come back to center. Find another full body stretch. And then change sides. Walk your legs and your arms both over to your left. See, you're in that discomfort without pain. I didn't say this on the other side, but just as a reminder, if you find you get to the point where your right shoulder or your right hip start to lift up off the earth, that's also an indicator that's far enough, plenty far. right? You have the option here to step your right ankle over your left or to drag your right arm further to the left, but only if that keeps you or puts you into rhythm with life. Arm cross, your right ankle from over your left, release your right wrist, come back to center, one more full body stretch, and then set up for any final resting shape. And I'd encourage you today, choose something that's more on the ease and something that puts you into ease. Usually I'm asking, like different versions of asking to balance effort with ease. And it's still like that, but more on the easeful end than maybe typical.
Start to swallow 2 or 3 times. And start drawing some deeper breaths in through your nose. Exhale through your nose or mouth. And I encourage you to begin to reanimate your body with movement. So the formula I'd like you to follow are small movements to medium-sized movements, and then eventually medium-sized movements to large movements. Taking all the time you need following that prescription, make your way onto either side. Take 3 or 4 breaths here. Check in with your body. Notice how your body's feeling. Check in with the quality of your nervous system. And then press yourself up into any seated position with any soft eyes. You can do anything you like with your hands. Thank you, friend, for moving and breathing with me. May the wind, the waves, and the current push you easily towards shore today and every day. If you move to do so, draw your thumbs to the space between your eyebrows. Blessings to you and your family. And that concludes our practice for today. Again, I'm Chris. I'm from Transformation Nation Yoga and Wellness. Thank you for joining us for Sunrise Inn. Great job. You're doing amazing. Keep going. And if you enjoyed this service, if it was something that was meaningful to you, I'd encourage you to like the video, subscribe to Transformation Nation Yoga on YouTube. Maybe share this with friends as well.